They do better in like small Pacific Islands counting votes than they do in Iowa. Former South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg still holds on to a slim lead over poor old Bernie Sanders. Never can get a break, Bernie. We're going to keep you updated should a call happen in this hour. This is unbelievable. 48 hours later. Also, it was never really in doubt. The Senate acquitted President Trump on both of the pathetic counts handed over by the House: obstruction of Congress and abuse of power. But some on the left, well, let's just call it a case of really, really bad denial.
The president is acquitted, and that's the way it's going to stay. But it is unresolved both politically and factually.
This is not a victory. He was impeached, and he was wrong.
This vote is no vindication. It's no real acquittal.
The verdict of this kangaroo court will be meaningless.
The stain will always be on this presidency.
Chuck Schumer calling the Senate a kangaroo court. Yeah, you got one ripping up papers in the House, and you got the kangaroo court in the Senate. Nice job. Joining me now, Lindsey Graham, chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator,
thank you.
This is not a true acquittal, they're saying.
Well, come tomorrow, Trump will be president. So all I can say is that Senator Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are no longer in charge of this. Why did she tear up the speech, Nancy Pelosi? Who was her audience? It was the squad. She's lost control of the House. Senator Schumer's going to get primaried by AOC. These people used to could work with them. They've lost their mind when it comes to Trump. The president was acquitted. This was a ridiculous accusation against the presidency itself. And to my colleagues who voted for a conviction, I think you put the presidency at risk. Here's what I would say. He voted not guilty on the process argument, obstruction of Congress. They impeached the president for daring to go to court. They impeached the president in 78 days. He never got to call a witness, never got to cross-examine anybody. You couldn't get a parking ticket based on the process they used. Now, here's abuse of power. Are you listening? They were going to remove the President of the United States because he suspended military aid to the Ukraine for a short period of time to leverage an investigation that never occurred. They got the money, and there was no investigation, and they were going to deny the American people the right to pick their own president based on that. That, to me, is ridiculous. The
Federalist reported last fall that a top Romney advisor served on the board of Burisma with Hunter Biden. His name is Joseph Cofer Black. Joined Burisma's board of directors while Hunter was also serving on the board. It's a cute little coincidence, don't you think?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm not going to say that that drove his thinking. I thought we were all going to be...
It's a swampy, though. Is it not swampy?
Well, all I can tell you is that we're going to look at Hunter Biden. We're not going to live in a world where you take a wrecking ball to the Trump family and you can't ask Hunter Biden, oh, by the way...
You're going to call him?
The Foreign Relations Committee will. I hope they should. Jim Risch, if you're listening, you need to ask John Kerry's chief of staff, what did you do about the email when you were told that there was a conflict of interest? I'm going to call everybody who signed the FISA warrant. I hope Richard Burr will tell us who the whistleblower is. And was the whistleblower working with political operatives on Schiff staff? I don't know. Let's look. I know this. If a Republican had done this, they'd be looking at us.
How about the IG for the intelligence?
Was there a political bias? I want to know who was the whistleblower? What was their motivation? Did they have a political bias? Were they working with people who wanted to take Trump down early on in his presidency?
You're going to call the whistleblower?
That will be up to Senator Burr. I hope so. Because
you can't call the whistleblower. Just explain that to our viewers. Okay. Why can't you call at the Judiciary Committee?
There's committees. I have jurisdiction over the Department of Justice and the FBI. I'm going to call everybody who signed the FISA warrant. The Foreign Relations Committee has jurisdiction over the State Department. How did they ignore Hunter Biden's conflict of interest? And just think about it. When Joe Biden was talking to the Parliament of the Ukraine, you need to end sweetheart deals. Don't you think they were laughing at him?
What's happening in New Hampshire on Monday? Well, they got the Democrats are going to rolling into New Hampshire, try to save this whole primary process after this debacle in Des Moines. And now what?
Well, I didn't do very well in New Hampshire, so I'm not the guy to ask, but I can tell you a lot about South Carolina. Joe Biden will win the South Carolina primary. 70% of the voters will be African American. He is well respected, beloved. A socialist will not win South Carolina Democratic primary. Mayor Pete pulled off a pretty stunning thing in Iowa. You're going to have 3 different winners in the first 3 primaries, and impeachment is behind us. The president's stronger today than he was before impeachment. The American people see this for what it was, a vendetta by people who can't accept the fact that he won. This is not over. They're going to come after him again. They're going to call Bolton. They'll try to do something between now and the election because they know they can't beat him. The reason that they tore the speech up is they hate the speech. But here's the good news. You can tear the speech up, but the results of the speech speak for themselves.
It's so great to see you. I know we don't like to keep you up late, but thank you, Senator Graham, for coming in. We really appreciate it. You are not. And as I mentioned in my angle, Romney's vote to convict the president only underscores, in my mind, that disconnect from Mitt Romney, whatever his motivations, and the constituents that he's there to represent in Utah, very good people. He said he wrestled with his conscience for weeks over what to do, but then he announced his decision with a media blitz and outlets that regularly demean the people who actually voted for him. Of course, this is the same man who in 2016 argued that on national TV that Trump was unfit for office. He was a fraud, a phony. Remember that speech? He begged Trump, though, a few months later to be his Secretary of State. Joining me now is Mike Huckabee, former Arkansas governor, Fox News contributor. Gov, didn't you run against Romney? Was it 2008, 2012? I forgot all these contests at this point.
It was 2008, and I'm happy to say that I beat Romney. I came in second to McCain. But I could have told you some things about Romney and the manner in which he operates. This is very disgusting to me, what he did. And I think the most disgusting part, he didn't just say that he thought the president was guilty. What he said was that Alan Dershowitz, Jay Sekulow, Jonathan Turley, every single Republican colleague, they were all wrong. And he and Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi and Jerry Nadler were all right. I mean, that's a pretty big jump to stand over on that side of the room with those folks that we've been watching just destroy the Constitution and shred due process and say, I think these guys are right. And guys like Mitch McConnell and people like even Mike Lee and Rand Paul and Lindsey Graham you just had on, they're all wrong. I'm smarter than they are. And yes, he groveled toward President Trump, wanting to be Secretary of State, and got passed over. And that was right after he went out and trashed President Trump. So this is just disgusting. I'm very, very sad for the people of Utah. They deserve better. They had Orrin Hatch, who was a great statesman, and it's sad that now they've replaced someone like Hatch with what we saw in Mitt Romney today.
Well, I think Senator Graham is right. I don't want to turn this entire thing into it's really not about Romney. It's instructive, though, to remember these moments, where people were, where they voted, why they say they voted the way they voted. I think we have to remember this and learn lessons from it. And speaking of that, here's how one MSNBC contributor described Romney's vote to convict President Trump.
Swearing an oath before God for Mitt Romney is like unlocking his superpower. I mean, there's no one in that chamber who was going to take that oath more seriously and more personally.
Even the LA Times had some column speculating that it was a Mormon prophecy. I was reading that tonight. I was like, I don't know what they were talking about. There are all sorts of speculation, Governor.
I would guess there were a lot of people in the Senate who were praying about their vote. Mitt wasn't the only one. I think some of them came to a different conclusion. I wouldn't blame God for that. I'd blame people not paying attention very well to what happened in the House and how we even got to the impeachment. I want to say, and this isn't just a kiss-up moment, but your opening monologue tonight was one of the best I've ever heard, and I thought you drilled down brilliantly on setting up this whole nonsense and what it's really done to tear the country up. And I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hope people saw it, and I hope they'll catch it if they didn't online, because it was great.
Well, Governor, you were, and people have to remember, it was you first. It was a few people, Pat Buchanan, you, myself on the radio, not to try to pat myself on the back, but, and Trump. And it was this about Rick Santorum on all these blue-collar issues, from immigration to trade to China. And you were there at the beginning, and Romney kind of stumbled into it and tried to pretend he was a blue-collar guy who was kind of a Thurston Howell III guy, and it didn't connect. Where is Lovey, though? I liked Lovey, and I like Thurston. I probably shouldn't compare him to Thurston right now. But, Governor, you were a leader in this, and without you, I don't know if we would have Trump today, frankly. So thank you for everything you've done for this country, and we just really appreciate it. And still ahead, AOC can't handle Rush Limbaugh getting the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and Pelosi, well, she turns off voters. It's seen and unseen. You do not want to miss Raymond Arroyo tonight. Next.
Medical school, it was very